The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
I have ideas as to what to do, but I haven't made a final. I like to make the final decision 1 second before it's due, because things change. I mean, especially with war.
Will the U.S. get involved in the war versus Iran? What the Ayatollah says will happen if they do, and why Israel says defeating Iran is in America's best interest. Plus, Governor Greg Abbott has ended plans to finish the border wall. With a majority left open, why the sudden change of heart and what this says about the state of illegal migration into the country. And then a deadly Listeria outbreak tied to a certain grocery item impacting people in at least 13 states. The heat and food product you need to be on the lookout for when it comes to your health. This is the National News Desk, America's News. Now, I'm Didi Gatton. As we come on the air, Israel and Iran near 1 week of exchanging fire. The Ayatollah has issued a direct warning to the U.S. that there will be serious consequences if the United States gets directly involved with attacking the Islamic regime. President Donald Trump said again why he is contemplating helping Israel with their mission to end Iran's nuclear program.
Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Too much devastation. And they'd use it. I believe they'd use it. Others won't use it.
And now the world is watching to see if President Trump orders U.S. forces to strike Iranian targets. The National News Desk, Atra El-Nashar, has the very latest on the conflict from Washington.
President Trump publicly tiptoeing around the idea of striking Iran.
You don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do.
Hours earlier, Israel's Air Force carrying out strikes in Tehran. President Trump says this has been his message to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Keep going.
Iran is not a nation to surrender, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei says in this video address. And he says America getting involved in this would be 100% to its detriment. President Trump Wednesday morning in real time seeming to change his stance on whether the time has passed to reach a nuclear deal with Iran.
Really, nothing's too late.
Have the Iranians reached out to you?
Yes.
And what did you say?
I said it's very late.
Within minutes, Iran's mission to the United Nations posted on X, the only thing more despicable than his lies is his cowardly threat to take out Iran's supreme leader. Iran does not negotiate under duress, shall not accept peace under duress, and certainly not with a has-been warmonger clinging to relevance. Should the president decide to strike, America's likely target with its so-called bunker-busting bombs would be Iran's underground Fordo nuclear site. Vice Chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Mark Warner, says there's no guarantee of success.
We're not even sure that using the bunker buster bombs that can only be delivered by American aircraft, whether even that alone could take out the nuclear facilities. I've heard reports that it would actually take troops on the ground.
Now, politically, the president does not have the full backing of his own party should he choose to strike Iran. There's a stark and, should I say, vocal split between those who say Trump needs to live up to his campaign promise of no new wars and those who say Iran had their chance at peace and the president now needs to do what it takes to prevent them from obtaining a nuclear weapon.
And as you know, the timing of this is so critical. Atra, what has President Trump said about the timing of when he may actually decide whether or not to strike Iran?
Well, we know that around 4:30, 5 p.m. Eastern, the president did have another meeting in the Situation Room. And as you saw, the president and Iran's supreme leader have gotten much more direct with each other in their rhetoric. Certainly, we would never expect the commander-in-chief to preview any strike against an enemy. But President Trump says he likes to make his final decision on something like this is, and I'll use his own words, 1 second before it's due, because things change, especially with war.
Live from Washington, D.C., Atra Elishar, thank you. And stay tuned because I spoke with the Israeli Minister of Strategic Affairs, Ron Dermer. He explained why this current war with Iran is more than just about Israel's survival, but also for American interests, both in the region and here at home. Live look over Olympic Boulevard, where an additional 2,000 members of the California National Guard have been enacted and deployed into Los Angeles. 4,100 troops, along with 700 active duty Marines, are now ready to assist if necessary. Governor Gavin Newsom calls the troops a power grab. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is expected to rule by Friday whether or not the president is within his powers to call on the Guard. Yesterday, Los Angeles Mayor Bass lifted the mandatory curfew in downtown L.A., citing a decrease in violence in the area since the protests broke out 2 weeks ago. And a live look now over downtown St. Paul, Minnesota, where in about 3 hours, a vigil will be held for slain Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband. The two were killed Saturday in their home. Vance Belter has been arrested for that murder. Now, last night, someone broke into that home that has been boarded up. Investigators say they already moved vital evidence out of the home, but plywood was pried off a window. So far, the family says it doesn't appear anything is missing. New developments, the U.S. State Department is processing foreign student visas once again, but with a wrinkle. They say all applicants need to unlock their social accounts for review before being allowed into the country. The department said any account not left public could be reason for the application to be denied. Meantime, a federal judge expands an order blocking the state's department's passport policy that there are only 2 genders. In April, Judge Julia Kobach stopped the policy from being enforced in the case of just 6 people who sued the Trump administration. Their preliminary injunction today extends that ruling to people who want a passport different than the sex than they were born, as well as those who want an X designation. And a blockbuster ruling from the Supreme Court today. Along ideological lines, the court ruled that a law in the state of Tennessee that blocks access to certain medical treatment for transgender minors may stand. As Christine Frizzell reports, the decision could have profound implications nationwide.
A statewide ban in Tennessee on gender transition treatments for transgender minors will remain in place following a 6-3 ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court. The conservative majority disagreed that Tennessee's ban violates the Constitution's guarantee of equal protection under the law. Chief Justice John Roberts writing for the majority that this case carries with it the weight of fierce scientific and policy debates about the safety, efficacy, and propriety of medical treatments in an evolving field, adding the Equal Protection Clause does not resolve those disagreements.
Justice Roberts, in the opinion today, basically deferred to the state legislature of Tennessee, saying that they know best, they've studied the medical evidence, and it's up to them to decide what medical treatment transgender minors should receive in the state of Tennessee.
Tennessee's Attorney General defended his state's law during a December interview with Sinclair.
The legislature looked at the evidence, heard testimony from doctors, from people who have gone through transition surgery, and recognized that there's a real risk of harm here to kids.
Those opposed to the law say the harm will be to those who want the treatments and will now be blocked from accessing them, warning of detrimental consequences to their mental health and increased strain on families.
They'll have nowhere to go. They're already uprooting, they're leaving their families and their jobs and their homes, the only place they've ever known, just to be able to get their kids the care they need to stay alive.
Tennessee's law bans puberty blockers and hormone therapy for minors, and since the same drugs can still be used for other purposes, those in the minority argued discrimination is in fact being carried out on the basis of sex. Justice Sonia Sotomayor writing, the decision invites legislatures to engage in discrimination by hiding blatant sex classifications in plain sight. Also writing, in sadness, I dissent. Experts tell me the decision will likely give constitutional cover to the 25 other states with similar bans. I'm Christine Frizzell for the National News Desk.
In another Supreme Court decision today, nuclear waste will be able to be temporarily stored at a site In Texas, right there, we pointed it out for you. The justices sided with the federal government and rejected challenges from the state and landowners, saying they didn't intervene soon enough. 3 justices disagreed with that and argued radioactive waste presents risk to people and the environment. The state construction of a border wall with Mexico has been put on hold. Governor Greg Abbott had promised to install hundreds of miles of the wall to reduce illegal entry of migrants, but citing the dramatic decrease in illegal apprehensions at the border, Texas is no longer paying for a wall and using that funding for other border security measures. The Border Patrol's latest numbers say they didn't release a single illegal migrant into the U.S. last month, and overall, apprehensions are down 93% versus May of last year.
What say is the defendant at the bar leaving the scene after accident resulting in death? The defendant not guilty or guilty? So say you, Mr. Foreman? So say you all?
And you can hear in that clip the crowd of supporters outside the court erupting in cheers as they learn that Karen Reed has been found not guilty of second-degree murder of her then-boyfriend, who was a Boston police officer. This was Reed's second trial after last year sitting through a hung jury. Today, Reed was found guilty of drunk driving and was immediately sentenced to 1-year probation with no jail time. Also, the sex trafficking trial for Sean Diddy Combs was put on hold until Friday after a juror called out sick. The judge told attorneys for each side one juror was experiencing vertigo and was unable to come to court. The trial is set to resume Friday morning. It is possible that the prosecution could rest their case by the end of the week. A judge says he's considering delaying the Brian Kohberger murder trial at the defense's request, but that he probably won't. At a hearing today, the defense argued they need more time to prepare and that the publicity could affect the right to a fair trial. We're still waiting for the judge's written decision. Kohberger is accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students in 2022. Coming up, 100 million Americans are at risk for severe storms tonight, where tornadoes and hail are most likely to hit. Also, the witnesses who testified today about a rumored cover-up regarding former President Biden's mental state. And later, the first city in the country to remove forever chemicals from its firefighters' uniforms. We'll be right back. Right now, 100 million people are at risk for severe thunderstorms this evening. Parts of Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky, they are at the highest risk here. Damaging winds, large hail, as well as tornadoes. That is all possible. Search and rescue efforts continue in West Virginia following devastating flooding over the weekend, with at least one person still presumed missing.
I do have some somber news to report. We now can clearly state that 8 people are confirmed dead in Ohio County. We just were able to receive news that The 8th person, an unidentified male, was just found.
And up to 4 inches of rain fell in less than half an hour, destroying multiple houses and cars. Rates in the U.S. are going to remain steady for now, holding at 4.25%, where it's been since December. President Trump has been calling for the Fed to cut rates. He says prime interest, this will help the economy, and it will also reduce debt payments the country has to make. But Fed Chairman Jerome Powell says he doesn't believe it's time to make those cuts due to economic uncertainty in the near future.
We believe that the current stance of monetary policy leaves us well positioned to respond in a timely way to potential economic developments.
We should be 2 points lower. It'd be nice to be 2.5 points lower. We'd be saving $800 billion, $700 billion. That's a lot of money, right? Think of it for nothing, for absolutely nothing. We'd save $600, $700, $800 billion. We have, I think we're 38th now in interest, and we should be number 1. We should be the lowest.
The Secretary of Defense was on Capitol Hill today and says the Pentagon is giving President Trump options on his possible next steps in the Iran-Israel conflict, but he won't say whether the U.S. military will get involved, but did say the armed forces are ready to answer the call.
We know right now that Tehran understands exactly what the president is saying. He set 60 days. The world can believe it, and the world cannot believe it. He set 60 days. They had an opportunity to make a deal. They should have made a deal. President Trump's word means something. The world understands that. And at the Defense Department, our job is to stand ready and prepared with options, and that's precisely what we're doing.
And you can see right here the military forces that the United States has in the region near and around Iran. As of just yesterday, we are learning at this point the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier will be headed to the Middle East next week. Earlier today, I spoke with the Israeli Minister of Strategic Affairs and asked him what the strong relationship between the U.S. and Israel means for the current conflict.
You know, the first thing they did was they took over the American embassy and held Americans hostage for 444 days. And then they decided to have their proxy Hezbollah bomb a Marine barracks in Beirut, and they killed 241 Marines. And then they bombed American embassies in Africa. And one of the worst things they did in terms of the cost of human lives and suffering of American troops is they were behind all of these IEDs in Iraq that killed and wounded so many servicemen. Those men and women who were in Walter Reed with limbs that were taken out, that was backed by the Iranians. So again, when we're fighting this enemy, we are not only fighting our own enemy, we're fighting America's enemy.
And we will have more of this interview tonight at 10. We will talk about the existential battle and where Israel's operations stand now, 6 days into their direct campaign against Iran. You can also watch the entire interview at thenationaldesk.com and our YouTube channel at The National Desk. Lawmakers are investigating former President Biden's mental capacity in his time in office. Today, Senate Judiciary Committee Republicans opened the first of what will likely be many panels on this subject.
We now know there was a conspiracy to hide the president's true condition by his family, by his staff, by the media, and many elected officials.
Witnesses included a former Justice Department official and 2 former Trump White House workers, including former Press Secretary Sean Spicer, who said there was a media cover-up. Almost all Democrats on the committee boycotted the hearing, viewing it as a waste of time. A Listeria outbreak that killed 3 people and led to 1 miscarriage is connected to Heat and Eat chicken fettuccine Alfredo, according to health officials. The newly recalled products were sold at Kroger and Walmart by the brand's Market Side and Home Chef. If you have them, throw them out or return them. The outbreak has sickened at least 17 people in 13 states since August. General Mills plans to remove artificial dyes from its U.S. cereals by next summer and from all of its U.S. food by the end of 2027. The company says most of its food already made without synthetic colors. It's one of several companies changing their products after HHS Secretary Kennedy shared a plan to start phasing out synthetic dyes in the food supply. A settlement proposal for opioid-related lawsuits could move forward soon now that all states involved have agreed. Today, a judge said he'd issue a decision on Friday on a plan for local governments and individual victims to vote on the deal. They would have until September 30th to vote. The owners of Purdue Pharma would have to pay billions of dollars over 15 years. Coffee can give you energy, maybe make you more attentive, but a new decades-long study suggests it might actually extend your life. Medical reporter Liz Bonas shares why this may be especially true for women.
Hey there, everybody. This study on women and coffee intake, one of the largest of its kind. It looked at our coffee drinking habits for decades.
And we really are creatures of habit when it comes to coffee. Richard Hunt knows that. He's the owner of this Kentucky Roebling Books and Coffee store.
We like the fact that everything that happens here is positive.
When it comes to the coffee part of what he serves up here, he may be right. Researchers in the study analyzed data on nearly 48,000 women who were coffee drinkers. As Tina Nair knows, it's easy to get hooked for life.
Coffee is so important to me. When I was 16 years old, I was out west, and my uncle was a railroad guy, and he gave me coffee and coffee and coffee, and I have been a coffee drinker ever since.
In this trial, coffee drinkers, it appeared, met the definition decades after the study started as being healthy agers.
I do think there's a certain motivation that it pushes you through the day.
Women who regularly drank at least 1 cup of coffee a day were more likely to be the women in the study who were mentally well, had fewer long-term diseases such as cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. They also were less likely to report memory and thinking problems up to 3 decades later. This compared to those in the study who were not regular coffee drinkers. None of this, by the way, a surprise to Tina Nair.
You would never guess my age, and so I would say yes, my coffee drinking has helped me greatly.
We don't know yet if the same is true for guys, but researchers didn't find the same healthy aging in women who took in soda or decaf drinks. And for every cup, up to 5 a day of coffee, the odds of staying well with age went up as much as 5%.
Now, it is important to note this is an association, not a cause and effect. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonas reporting.
Coming up next year on the National News Desk, the action officials are taking to ensure a major Juneteenth event tomorrow is safe. We'll be right back after this. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We are taking the pulse of America, and we start in Rhode Island with a major step towards protecting the health of firefighters.
It's a life-changing first happening right here in East Providence.
To become the first department nationwide that is entirely non-PFAS.
The fire department is the first in the country to have gear that is non-PFAS for the entire department. also known as forever chemicals that can be found almost anywhere and are resistant to breaking down, sometimes leading to major health problems for the human body. Legislation passed this year prohibiting the manufacture, sale, or distribution of any firefighting protective equipment containing PFAS chemicals.
Bottom line is, our first responders, they put their lives on the line every day for our residents. And, when you have them using equipment that's putting their lives on the line, it was time to make a change.
Stephanie Carter founded Southern Utah's Juneteenth celebration 4 years ago, not just to honor history, but to create a sense of home.
If you're looking for community, come to the Juneteenth and begin to connect with other people who are looking for community.
In Washington County, where Black residents make up just over 1% of the population, Carter emphasizes that this event is open to anyone. Police say they don't expect any disturbances. And while Carter says she hasn't faced any direct threats, she has seen some negativity online. However, she says the city of Washington and Mayor Staley have embraced Juneteenth, helping to secure permits and provide law enforcement.
A written commitment 10 months ago to page or file not found. What does this mean for U.S. Postal Service operations going forward here in Reno? Nothing, according to a statement from the USPS. But it means something to both Nevada U.S. Senators Jackie Rosen and Catherine Cortez Masto, who penned a letter to the Postal Service, its acting postmaster Doug Tolino, asking for answers. The pair demanded that the USPS recommit to processing local letter mail within northern Nevada, and questioned if the organization has plans to downsize Reno's local processing center on Vassar Street.
Coming up next, a wallaby on the loose in New York. The two reasons her owner is concerned. We'll explain right after this. A wallaby named Mac is on the loose in upstate New York after escaping from an educational zoo over the weekend. You can see him hopping in the background. The director says he's concerned because wallabies are prey animals and they could also pose a risk to drivers.
So what we're hoping for is that people can spot her. So first thing is to be a lookout, keep an eye out for her, and when you find her, to call us.
And he says not to approach Mac if you see her because she might run away. He's added new safety measures to prevent future escapes. We invite you to join us again this evening as we talk to an Israeli American in Israel tonight with a glimpse at what life is like under the constant threat of missile attacks. I'm Didi Gatton. Thanks for watching. See you at 10.